Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. Okay, we continue. Again, we look into the MAF151. Okay, we look into the syllabus of MAF151. As I mentioned earlier, after you look into the elements of cost, then you go into the costing methods. So the first one is you look into the job and batch costing. So you look at the this one, activity-based costing, I've already explained to you that relates to the overhead. Okay, activity-based costing that relates to overhead. It looks into how you assign the cost of overhead based on the activity. You assign the cost of overhead to your product, but the technique that you use is based on the activity rather than using the traditional method of, maybe for example, you are using the direct labor, or you are using the machine hour and so on, right? So you look into the costing method. So the first costing method that you look into is the job costing. Also, you look into the batch costing. To a certain extent, you also look into the service costing. So what are these? Okay. So if you look into, you will have specific order costing. You also have continuous operation costing. So what are these? Specific order costing and continuous operation costing. You can just Google it, and then you can look at the image, for example, so that you have a better idea of it. You can see here, hold on. Okay, this one you look into what are the method of costing. Various aspects of business enterprises depends on their product based on its nature, production, and particular conditions for business fixed cost. The costing of products is decided via methods of costing. So you are looking at the methods of costing. There are various methods of costing which helps a business entrepreneur to know how much money they should invest for a specific product. So it's basically you are looking at the costing methods. Okay, there are two types of methods which are used for costing. The first one is your specific order costing, and the other one is your continuous operation costing. You have this costing method. Remember, previously you have looked into the elements of cost. What's your main objective? If you still remember your cost accounting, so if you still remember your cost accounting is a form of managerial accounting that aims to capture a company's total cost of production. So you want to determine the cost of production. In order for you to determine the cost of production, remember you go to the elements of cost. After you have known how much is the material, how much is the labor, how much is the overhead, then you have to combine all these elements of cost so that you can determine or you can ascertain the total cost of production. So the technique that you use to determine the cost of production will be either you use the specific order costing or the continuous operation costing. You look into the methods of costing. So if you look here, the specific order costing among two types of costing method, specific costing is one of the types. This type of costing is used for those business companies where they do the construction of the product or provide jobs. So that's why you look into the first one, the job costing. So specific order costing is further classified into three types. Remember, the first one that you do under the MAF151 is the job costing. So if you were to go back to in your MAF151, you remember you have this one, job and batch costing. You have the job costing. So what is job costing? So job costing is the method of costing which comes under specific order costing. Remember, I said you have specific order costing, you have the continuous operation costing. So remember this one, you have this one under costing method, the specific order costing, you have the continuous operation costing. Under the specific order costing, you have the job costing, you have the batch costing. So what is your job costing? So job costing is the method of costing which comes under specific order costing. I've shown you just now. So this method is used to fix the cost according to the job or the work type separately. So you look into every job, every task, every work that you do, and you name it as a job, as a particular job. So every job and every product has its different substances and properties, and considering all the necessary costs, it charged as a cost unit. So I'm not going to go into detail as you have done your job costing before. Just for a recap, or just to refresh your memory. What's the example of your job costing? For example, you are doing a kitchen cabinet. So you can see that one kitchen cabinet in one house, for example, is different from the other. It is unique. It is different. It is based on the customer's requirement, based on the demand by the customer. So you meet the requirement of the customer. So you design your kitchen cabinet, for example, based on the customer's requirement. So if let's say this one is a kitchen cabinet A, is different from kitchen cabinet B, different from kitchen cabinet C, and so on and so forth. So that depends on the special requirement by the customer. So each particular one is called a job. So you are doing that particular job for that particular customer. So how to determine how much is the cost that how much is the price that you want to charge to the customer? Of course, you need to determine the cost. So how are you going to determine the cost? Again, it goes back to the elements of cost. What includes in the element of cost? We have looked into just now. The material, labor, expenses can be further divided into your direct cost, your indirect cost. So you gather all your cost so that you add up, and then you will get your total cost. But the method of you collecting or gathering your cost is known as the costing method that you use. That is the specific order costing, because the nature of the product is based on the customer's special requirement. So if that is the case, then you will use job costing. You get it? Again, as I said, it does not only apply to product, it also applies to service. For example, you repair a car. You are not selling a car, but you open up a workshop, you repair a car. So when you repair a car, for example, the thing that you do for car A is different from the things that you do for car B, and different from car C. For example, this one you want to change the tire, this one is something wrong with the engine, for example. So how you gather the cost will be based on the job, because the job or the technique that you use is called the job costing. Okay, and if that is done in batches, then you go into batch costing. Okay, so that finish with that. So you have looked into the method of costing, this one. So you look into the job costing. Okay, you have looked into the job costing where the based on the customer's order. Every work and job has its nature. The work are done in a factory or workshop or repair shops. Costing unit is a job or based on the work. That means the cost unit is based on the job, per job, or the per work that you are doing. Then you also look into batch costing, whereby if you are producing the product in batches, a group of product, the same product but similar product, but they are produced in batches, then you will use your batch costing. So you also have looked into a little bit about the service costing, and then a continuation of that. Okay, so then you go into MAF201. So here, finish off your MAF151. So based on MAF151, you have looked into the cost, what is cost accounting, and then you look into the elements just now, the material, the labor, the overhead, and then technique for overhead also for your ABC. Then you go into the costing methods, the job, batch, and service costing. So it's basically job and batch costing. That finishes your MAF151. Then you move into MAF201. So this semester you continue with MAF201. So here goes your MAF201, cost and management accounting. So a little bit of management now. So you look into the continuation. So the first topic that we have for MAF201 is contract costing. So here you will have contract costing, and then you move into process costing. So if you look here, you can see under the costing method, under specific order costing, you will have job costing, you will have batch costing, and you will have contract costing. So the first one, you have done job costing MAF151, you have done batch costing in MAF151. So in this semester, you will look into contract costing. Okay, contract costing again under specific order costing. Generally, what is contract costing? So basically, if you involve in the construction of a building, for example, so building A is different from building B, is different from building C, and so on. So if that is the nature of your product, then you will use contract costing. For example, you are making a bridge. So bridge 1 is different from bridge 2, is different from bridge number 3. So in that case, you are using a contract costing. Okay, so that is our first topic under under MAF201. So you look into the costing method. Again, you will have the material. If you are making the bridge, for example, again, you will have the cement, you will have all these things, the bricks and so on. So that will be your material. You will have the labor that you pay, and then you also incur your overhead cost. Okay, so that will be the, if that is the nature of your product, so you will use contract costing. Okay, and then you go into the next part, the next one, that is your continuous operation costing. So as for now, hopefully that you understand what is the for the one under the specific on the costing. Okay, remember you have under specific order costing, whereby it's basically you look into the cost that you charge, the costing technique, or the cost that you want to determine the cost based on the product, or based on the jobs that you, or the construction that you are doing. So that is basically the specific order costing. So next, then we will look into the continuous operation costing, a little bit about that. Right? With that, I thank you.